What's up everybody, it's Paul from Boosted Films, and today we got another easy how-to. We're working on a 2022 Subaru Outback. This is the 2.5 liter non-turbo version, and what we're going to do today is change the engine air filter along with the cabin air filter. Now this should be a pretty easy how-to, and I'll give you the step-by-steps on this vehicle and how to change this. But if you want to do me a favor, let me know if this same how-to worked for your specific Subaru that's different than this 2022 Subaru Outback. Go ahead and let me know if this same process worked for you in the comments down below. So that's it for this quick introduction. Let's jump into it. So first we're going to start with changing the engine air filter. And the first step in this process, of course, is to pop your hood. Now to pop your hood, if you open the driver's side door and go to the bottom left, kind of where your left knee would be as you're driving the car, there is a latch where you can pull this little latch/lever, and that will open your hood. Now once your hood is popped open, there is a safety latch that holds it from completely opening up. So what you need to do to actually get your hood open the rest of the way, slide your fingers in, kind of curve your fingers down a little bit, and then slide over to the left, and then you're releasing that safety latch. And once you lift up your hood, there is a prop rod kind of built into the hood here. It's got a little white piece on the end of it. You should be able to pull that prop rod out of the hood, and then you'll see here there's a specific spot for that on your fender, basically, where you would just set that white piece into where this arrow is pointing. There's a hole specifically there for this prop rod, so you should be able to set that in place and then set your hood down, and that prop rod will hold it up. And right by that prop rod is actually our engine air filter box, and that's where the air filter is that we're going to change. And just to give you a bit more detail about how this all works, there's this plastic piece here that directs air into the air box, and that air box contains a filter that will prevent any debris, anything bad, any particles that you don't want from getting into your engine. So that's what this filter's purpose is, to keep anything that could damage your engine from getting inside of it. And there are two basically metal clips on this box that hold it in place. And these are the two main items holding this air filter in place. So we're gonna use our thumb, pry against it, and then flip those up and out of the way. Now, if you're at the front of the vehicle facing the car, you kind of need to push away from you and then pull up. And that's going to kind of free this part of the air box that holds your air filter in place. There is a separate mesh kind of built in to this one, but of course we're not doing anything with that today. We're just changing the filter piece you're going to see pulled out in just a second. You do have the option to remove this clamp, and then you could also unplug this sensor here, and then you could pull out this whole piece if you wanted to, if you found that easier. But you really shouldn't have to do this for this job. You could just leave everything plugged in, and you just kind of need to push back a little bit as you go, and then you should be able to slide out your old air filter. So you'll notice we're changing the OEM air filter here, and it has an arrow for direction of airflow. But realistically, this filter, the way it's designed, can kind of only fit in here one way. So you're not going to have to worry too much about putting this in backwards, because it's basically only going to fit if you put it in the correct way. But of course, make a note of how the air filter looks when you took it out. Take a photo of it if you'd like before you took it out, or of course reference this video. Now it doesn't matter what air filter you bought, there are a bunch of different brands out there, but of course as long as you got the air filter that's meant for your particular Subaru, that should be good. But what you want to do is just kind of take a quick measurement, if you will, set them right side by side, check to see if they're about the same thickness, check to see if they're about the same height and width. That's just a good way to make sure that you were delivered the right part, and it won't give you any other extra headaches while you're trying to install this new filter. So after a quick comparison, I could tell that this filter looked like it should work just fine. So our next step is to, of course, install this new air filter. So what we're going to do here is utilize one hand to basically push the airbox back and get it out of the way a little bit, while using the other hand to drop this air filter in place. You should be able to kind of feel it drop in place, and then push it in to the piece of the airbox closer to you, closer towards the front of the car. And look all the way at the bottom while you do this too, just to make sure that the bottom part isn't sticking out. And you should be able to get your hand in there like I did to just make sure it's flush. Now we're going to change up the view a little bit here to give you a good shot showing that there are 3 little prongs at the very bottom part here that kind of sit in place. There's 3 openings you see, those 3 different spots. There's a bigger one in the center and then 2 narrower ones on each end. So those pieces of the box should push in and line up when you put this cover back on. And you'll see in a second here too that it's a little bit easier to see more towards the inside of the car. You'll see this other piece where it pushes in. So basically what I'm getting at here is if you are trying to push this on and it feels like you're really having to push a lot of force to get it in place, you want to double check and make sure you have those bottom parts lined up, because it should kind of just really fall into place as long as those pieces are lined up. So take your time, just lift it up a little bit, slide it forward, and then slide down. And once it is slid in place, you should also kind of be able to get your hand down back behind the bottom side, and you should be able to feel as well too that they are in place if you need to. But basically, as long as those clips close and they seal the box back up, it should work just fine. So that's it. It's going to require a little bit of extra force probably to put those clips down and lock that airbox in place. But that is the final step. You have successfully changed your air filter. And finally, just to close your hood again, you'll lift up your hood a little bit, lift it up gently, and then you should be able to pull out that prop rod from that hole that it was in, and then slide it back in. Sorry, it got cut out of the frame here of the camera a little bit, but you should slide it back in to the piece of the hood that holds it in place. And then usually when I close my hood, I just hold it up a few inches and then slide my hand out and let it drop. So that's it. Hopefully you have successfully changed your engine air filter, and now you're ready to move on to your cabin air filter. So this time we're going to start on the passenger side of the vehicle, and the first thing you're going to want to do is open your passenger door, and then we're going to end up removing our glove box here to get access to this. So if there's anything in your glove box, just empty that out. Take any pieces out of your glove box. It's also probably a little bit easier to do this if you move the seat back. So take that passenger seat and move it all the way back. That'll help give you a little bit more room. And of course, you pull that lever to open up your glove box. And then on the right side here, there's one arm that connects in place to hold that glove box up and make sure it doesn't fall. So what you're going to want to do is pop that off. It slides off rather easily. So if you get your finger behind it, you should be able to just pull it away from the center part of the glove box, and it should snap off. And the next part of removing this glove box is actually just kind of squeezing in these 2 plastic sides here that I'm showing you. You got to squeeze towards the middle on both of these sides. There's just a piece behind there that holds it up, that keeps it from falling out, that you're going to see in a second. So I'm going to take both my hands, squeeze together, and then pull down. It shouldn't take a whole lot of force. You should feel it when it kind of comes through, and then that drops your glove box out of the way. And once your glove box is out of the way, now you do have access to basically what is a cover here that covers up the access to your cabin air filter. So there are just 2 clips holding this cover on, and they're just squeeze clips. So you should be able to squeeze one at a time, or you might be able to use both your hands. I'm trying to do this while filming. So I squeezed one and pulled it towards me a little bit, and then went to the other side, squeezed that one and pulled it towards me as well. And then your cover should slide off. Of course, you'll want to note those top indentations on that cover that line it up. You're going to have to slide those back in later. And this should just pull right out, but I will note that sometimes the plastic piece kind of just above that glove box can hang down a little bit. So you may have to pull down the air filter a little bit to pull it out, or push up on that plastic piece to pull it out. And of course, you can see this air filter was dirty already. This only had about 12,000 miles on it, and it looks like it's a good thing to be replacing. Again, just like the engine air filter, I like to compare what I bought to what I took out. So I'm going to check and just make sure it's about the same height, depth, and width. So one thing you don't want to get tricked by here is the up arrow on that cover. If you saw that up arrow on the cover that we took off, that was just for the cover itself. The actual airflow in this particular car is down, and most cars will be that way as well. So this filter has an airflow direction arrow on it. So pay attention to the arrow on the filter. And if you wanted to actually double check yourself, a trick for this to make sure what direction the airflow is flowing is by turning your fan speed on high and using a piece of paper like I am here, and you can see it's getting sucked down. Of course, hold on to that paper, make sure it doesn't really get sucked in, you're just kind of confirming that the airflow direction is down. But I do want to give a shout out to the person who commented on my last video upload of this, where I did just quickly throw it in the other way. So it's always good when people comment and correct me when I do anything wrong. So thank you for that. So as we reinstall this new cabin air filter, you can see the airflow arrow pointing down as we insert this new filter. And after you push in this air filter, you want to push it up a little bit into place too, and that should kind of hold it a little bit more firmly in place. So don't get tripped up by that arrow pointing up on the cover. That is just the direction that the cover mounts, not the airflow direction. And again, here I'm pointing out just a little bit of where it could catch on that plastic piece that might hang down to pull it out. So maybe push up on that plastic piece if you're having trouble getting out your old cabin air filter. So we're going to put this cover back on, and as you can see, there's the two parts that will line up at the top. So you're going to watch for where those push in. Make sure you get those in the slots and then push them up in place. And then the cover itself should just push on. So those snap pieces should just snap back on. You should be able to push it on, and that should be about it. So the final step in this process is going to just be putting your glove box back in place. Here you can see the pieces that kind of hold on to that bar. So those are your kind of alignment marks to line this back up. So you should be able to lift it up and set it on there. So those little C-hooks kind of go around that bar and hold it in place. And then honestly, this was easier to get in than I thought when I lifted it up. I kind of just lifted up towards the center, gave it a little bit of force, and it just kind of slid right back in place. I think those pieces that hold it up are a little bit angled. So just when you give it a little force as you're pushing up, it should just kind of pop back in place. And then those pieces that hold it to keep it from just falling straight down on either side, you can double check to make sure that they are both in place and holding it up like it should be. And of course, going back to that little bar on the right side, on the passenger side here, you just got to snap that bar back in place. And again, this should take just a little bit of force. It may help to lift up that glove box a little bit, make sure it's lined up straight, and then you should be able to push that arm back on and hold it in place. And then you should be able to easily open and close your glove box. So there you go, everybody. Hopefully that was every detail you needed to change your engine air filter or your cabin air filter on your Subaru. As I mentioned in the beginning, it could be helpful to me and other people watching this video if you comment about what specific Subaru you have and whether or not the same process worked for you, so people can confirm whether or not they're watching the right video for their specific vehicle. So if you did that, that could be great. As always, I'm just an automotive enthusiast on YouTube here, so I make mistakes just like anybody else. Also, please check the comments if there are, updates to anything that I may have done wrong. You could find them there. And of course, please let me know in the comment section if you think I did anything wrong or if you think there's an easier way to do something. But as always, this is Paul from Boosted Films saying thanks so much for watching.